All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Behind the Business. Like always, I am joined by my esteemed colleague, Dean Lulkin. And today what we wanted to do is we wanted to dig into something that is on the topics and haunts business owners alike, which is the idea of lead generation. As a business owner, how many times have you sat back at your desk and realized that you don't have enough leads to feed your entire sales organization, or you have too many leads, but the quality is garbage? Or it could be something else entirely, which is, how do I get more leads? So I think the point of this episode is just to discuss in some holistically, right? How do we get leads? How do we get quality leads? What is the goal insofar as how do we spend money and make sure that the amount of money we're spending on acquiring leads makes sense for our business? And then how to get a lead to transform into an opportunity, which then transforms into a closed won opportunity, meaning a client. So to kick things off, I'm going to turn to my esteemed guest, Dean Lulkin, who has helped us run a large funding company, Cardiff, for the last 20 years. Acquiring leads is something that's always, right, on our minds. When I say the word lead, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
The first thing comes to my mind is that if we teleport ourselves into a six-figure business,
okay,
I think the word lead, it just results in like a blank look. Just like, what the hell is that? If we teleport ourselves into a seven-figure business, I think we just see a guy or a girl pulling all of the hair right off their head. Because like you brilliantly said, either we have too many and we're constantly fretting about the quality, or we have too few and we're spending too much to acquire them. And this is probably the scariest part of running a 6 or 7 figure business, aside from the HR and employee aspect that we all struggle with every single day. Now, once we get into the 8 and 9 figures, things start to smooth out a little bit, right? Yeah. Things become a little bit calmer because you have more resources and you have larger spends. But with the tiny budgets associated with 6 and 7 figure businesses,
right,
all I can see is either a blank look or someone with their fingers clutched around those tiny little hairs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. I think, if there was one word that pairs together well with the word leads, it would be fear. Right? Any good meal is accompanied by a good wine. I think with leads, it's always fear. If it's a lot of leads, it's fear that we're spending too much. If it's too few leads, it's fear that we don't have enough for our sales department. So fear is constantly, right, the paired feeling that's associated with lead generation. I think what I want to do is just quickly tell you the format of today's discussion. I think what we're going to do is we're going to give you an introduction to lead generation. What is lead generation? Why it's important. Talk about the different types of leads. So cold leads versus warm. And then let's set some goals, right? Let's talk about what success looks like insofar as lead generation. How does that sound?
Great.
All right, cool.
Let's build a little map.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Everybody needs a map, and there have to be little places along that map for you, right? Pins. Or the business
points
owner needs points of interest. Yeah, the business owner needs to know where they're going and how to get there.
Yeah. Going back to it, I just got off the telephone with a friend of mine and somebody who I'm doing consulting work for, which is Brad Lee. And Brad Lee sells an amazing piece of software called Lightspeed VT. And what it is, it's a software system that helps course builders demonstrate their mastery of a certain subject matter. And so while Brad might say, well, our software system is a system unto itself and differs greatly from these other peers that are in our industry, like Kajabi and Lightspeed and Thinkific and School and so on and so forth. I think in reality, right, you are competing in a crowded marketplace. And so being able to understand who your peers are, what their lead generation strategy is, what their ad creatives look like, what platforms they're advertising on, what their landing pages look like, and the system softwares and apps that they're using to then guide people through the process to exit that sales funnel is super important. Whether or not you're, Lightspeed VT or your Chick-fil-A, at the end of the day, you're competing in a crowded marketplace. Understanding the strategies of your peers, even if they're Chick-fil-A and they only serve chicken. Well, if you're In-N-Out Burger and you serve meat, right, you still want to understand that the consumer has choices, right? And that you're in this crowded marketplace. You want to understand the advertising systems, apps, and platforms that your peers are using and leveraging every day and spending money on in order to generate those leads that, those leads might also want to purchase your product, right? And so being alone in a sort of vacuum is a danger unto yourself as a business owner. And so really when it comes to lead generation and why lead generation is important, I want you to do one important thing for me. Before you get introspectively, analytical about your lead generation process, look at your peers. Look at your peers and what they're doing. Any color you want to give to that?
Well, so business owners that are retail facing, they have a huge advantage and it's a huge disadvantage. If you're sitting inside of a strip mall, you might lull yourself into believing that you don't need leads, right? You're paying all of this rent or all this triple net rent to a landlord in order to drive this foot traffic in your door. And boy, are you wrong. Because if that is all you're relying on to grow your business, you're in deep trouble.
Well, hold on a second. I've got a great boba shop inside of a mall. I've already paid for the space. I can just sit there and wait behind the counter for the leads to come in, right?
That's a great way to be out of business in the next 9 to 12 months. I love it.
Sounds good. Okay.
Yeah, your boba competitors are extremely proud of you.
So then what I got to do? I got to go out from the behind the counter into the front and hand out free samples?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. What do I have to do if I'm running a retail business? Now, for the folks that are sitting at home with home-based businesses or in an office building, we have completely different sort of worries and considerations. But let's just talk to the retail folks, whether you're running a tire shop, right, or a boba dispensary. It's a new name I've coined for them.
That could work.
Yeah, it could be brilliant.
Just check 2 boxes at once. Oh, dude.
Yeah. So as the owner of a boba shop, what am I supposed to do? Well, first of all, take a look at what the competitors are doing, right? Most likely, they're not just relying on foot traffic. So what could they be doing? Well, there are 2 main avenues they could be pursuing, right? One is digital marketing. So they could be using SEO or paid ads to drive traffic to their location. And 2 is direct mail. So knowing where your boba shop is located could help you understand sort of who to market that business to and entice them with various attractive offers. Could be coupons, could be some sort of loyalty program. But you got to drive people to your location, not just rely on foot traffic and looking at what the competition is doing. Go visit them, right? Send a mystery shopper. Befriend them, right? There's nothing wrong with making friends with your competitors. And then as a level 2 option for the enlightened business owner that's in a retail location, get the heck out of that location and let your mind be open to other possibilities. What does that mean? Well, if you own some sort of food service business, you better believe that there are conventions and meetups and various types of events going on for your industry. Get to them, right? The easiest place for people on the West Coast is Las Vegas. Las Vegas is filled with events for folks like you every month of every year with tens and hundreds of thousands of attendees. And that is one of the best places to go to learn about new marketing strategies, learn about what your competitors in, not necessarily in what you're doing are doing, but the folks that are very much like you selling a similar product that you could learn from.
All right. Well, Dean took you through how to build a business. I'm going to reel you back in and talk about, I'm going to reel you back in and talk a little bit about lead generation. So we talked about what is lead generation and how important it is, right? Lead generation leads to onboarding new clients. And whether you use the example of, I think what Dean talked about, which is if you own a tire store or a boba shop, why it's so important to bring in new leads. New leads, again, equal new customers. Well, how do you get new leads? Well, you have to get from behind the counter to in front of the counter and engage with potential prospects and encourage them to test, try, and buy your product. So that leads us into the types of leads, right? Two types of leads, cold versus warm, right? In an example of a cold lead, this is someone who gets into your sales funnel, who is considering making a purchase, but may not be ready to make that purchase at this point. And to use an example to sort of deviate or pivot back to maybe an online sales, an e-com, a drop shipping, that type of business, right? Somebody comes into your online store, your Shopify store. A cold lead could be someone who moseys through the website, looks at a few different products, maybe even puts stuff into a shopping cart, but then abandons. So I would ascribe those types of leads. I think I would define them as a cold lead. They've come into your funnel somehow, some way. You don't have their information, right? So what do? Right? I'll give you an example again to stick with the idea of like an e-com business or drop shipping type business. Modal windows. Modal windows are tremendously helpful. Now they're specifically helpful when users are on either desktop or a tablet. You're not going to find a tremendous amount of value in modals. I would say at least scroll-based modals on mobile. Now, modals are hugely popular as a time-based pop-up window on mobile. But as it relates back to scrolling, modals are enormously helpful. Somebody's scrolling on your website, they're about to close the Chrome tab. Have a modal window pop up. Don't go. Here's a coupon for 10%. That is the best way to convert someone from a cold lead to a warm lead. Now they've got a coupon in front of them, encouraging them to get through the checkout process. Right? What you're doing is you're offering value to that person to stick with you through the process. So to kind of close the loop on this, what do you do to usher somebody from being a cold lead to a warm lead? Well, I would say no matter what business you're in, offer value. And with respect to leads in general, the third leg of the stool, right? First one was, what is lead generation? The second was what types of leads there are. And the third was setting goals, right? Defining what success looks like. So if you're looking to bring in more leads, identify sort of what budget you have to bring in those leads, what you're willing to pay as a cost per lead. And then you just kind of work backwards, right? And that could be on Google's advertising platform. That could be on Facebook's platform, right? Understanding what it costs to advertise, what it would normally cost for an impression share, for a click, for a lead, for a conversion, and then ultimately to get them to purchase. And I think if you're smart about it, right, and you're not willing to spend a ton of money up front to, advertise a new product or a new service, right? You want to create a test case. The best way to start is holistically understanding, okay, I want to bring in cold leads. I want to convert them to warm leads. I want to offer them value. And this is what my budget's going to be for a month. And so I think, for those of you who are interested in testing new budgets, testing a new product or service, that's how I would approach the problem.
And this is great advice for businesses that are in the direct to consumer or sort of online product space. The folks that are either in the high ticket service space, like real estate agents, or in the retail space where they're selling some sort of item at the point of sale, not online, but actually in person. Sometimes these things can get much murkier. And so if you have customers walking in your door And that is how you rely on generating revenue. The most important thing I think in this type of video that we can tell you is don't do nothing. Do spend money on marketing and begin to learn about what works and what doesn't. Begin to learn about what your peers are doing that seems to be working for them and what's not, and which medium works best, right? It could be search, it could be SEO, it could be ads on Instagram and Facebook, or it could be some other platform that you're currently not trying. But do not sit behind the counter and do nothing. I think that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the last thing that I want to touch upon, and maybe we can close out this video as it relates back to lead generation, is 3 things. One is you need to optimize your website for lead generation. And the second part about that is using SEO or search engine optimization in order to be found online, get discovered. The third is creating landing pages that are known to convert, right? And there are so many different, and I'm going to dig into this, but there are so many different templates. There are so many different apps and platforms that you can use to leverage to create highly converting landing pages. I said there were only 3. There was actually one more, and it's call to actions. And these are so important, right? Crafting effective CTAs. And so those are the last 4 points I think we'll have time for today. But in order to optimize your website for lead generation, right? Again, there are a few things that you're going to want to do, right? Starting off is SEO. SEO is enormously valuable while at the same time being free. And so if I was just today starting a business, and so you, Mr. Viewer, Mrs. Viewer, if you're looking to start a business and you're limited on the amount of money that you can spend, start first with SEO. SEO is one of the ways that you can optimize your website in order to not only be found on search engines like Google and Bing, but also to get them into your sales funnel. So I'll give you an example of how powerful SEO can be. So let's say, for example, you sell t-shirts, and what you want to do is you want to create leads, right? People who are looking to buy t-shirts, but you don't have any money to spend on Instagram and Facebook, and you can't really afford to run ads on Google. So SEO is one of the best ways, again, to optimize your website to get people into your funnel, to get known online. And so I want to give you a pragmatic example of what you could do leveraging SEO in order to be found online and to bring people into your funnel. So let's say I was creating a t-shirt with the American flag on it. There are a lot of competitors online that are probably selling these types of t-shirts. So what I would do is I would open up Google Keyword Planner and I would type in the word American flag t-shirt or t-shirt with American flag. And then I would look at the results as it relates to the queries for those keywords strung together, what the other versions of those queries might look like, meaning white t-shirt with American flag, black t-shirt with American flag. And then I would create landing pages, blog articles, right, that essentially cover those key terms. So let's use a real world example of this American flag t-shirt. If I knew there were 16,000 queries for an American flag t-shirt in the month of June, and I wanted to sell and market my t-shirt, again, I know what the keywords, I know what the commonly queried keywords associated with my t-shirt are. So I'd create a website, and the website would have an articles section or a blog section. And then using WordPress, I'd create, 150 articles, 200 articles about American flag t-shirts, right? And so each article would have an H1 heading, which is a title, and it would have that tag about that specific query. And then throughout that article, I would delicately weave those queries into the article. Why having an American flag t-shirt on July 4th is important. Where to get an American flag t-shirt before the 4th of July. Why t-shirt companies market and sell American flag t-shirts. How to tell if your American flag t-shirt company is based in America. What's the best fabric to wear on 4th of July in hot temperatures? Why humidity makes wearing an American flag t-shirt almost impossible to do. What's the best t-shirt to wear on an on a July 4th American flag cookout? I mean, it doesn't matter, right? The point is that you're leveraging what the queries are and you're weaving that in to a bunch of articles. So try it, right? Create a bunch of articles centered around those keywords. Don't stuff, quote unquote, which is don't make an article that makes absolutely no sense. Have the article make sense, right? Write these 150 articles. There are so many large language models that you can lean upon to create an article about these key terms. So don't feel like you have to sit there for 3 hours every night writing articles by yourself. Leverage large language models like ChatGPT, for example, which you can access for free. Right? There's a pro version for 4.0 that's $20 a month. But again, right, leveraging these large language models, build these landing pages, right, that essentially, right, are checking the boxes. One, they're making you SEO optimize, right? Your website is going to get discovered and found out for the products you sell if you understand what the queries related to the products or services you sell are. Then you create these landing pages, right? So the article is about the July 4th cookout, and it's folding in this idea that you're selling a t-shirt that people really and truly should wear on the July 4th holiday. Then you want that modal window. And the modal window, again, will pop up that says, are you looking for a July 4th t-shirt? Here's a 10% coupon. Now you've got them into your funnel, right? That's your call to action. And then if your website is connected with a Shopify account, somebody's going to enter their cell phone, their email address, want to keep up to date with the best trends in t-shirts. Click here. That's your CTA. Now you've got them, whether it's a cold lead or a warm lead, you've got them in your database. Now you can market to them using email, text messages, right? For future offers of other t-shirts that you're going to design and market. Dean?
I mean, I think we should thank the audience for attending this free version of our digital marketing class for small business owners, and stay tuned for a paid version of the digital marketing class.
Yeah. Yeah. I am so passionate about marketing, and I sort of understand it as a blueprint. And so a lot of the times when people ask me what are seemingly challenging questions on how to grow and market their business, I go, it's pretty simple. It's just a blueprint. And I've done it so many times for so many different clients, even for our business, right? That the examples that I give, though seemingly easy to follow, this is the strategy sessions, right? That people pay thousands upon thousands of dollars for when they hire, a digital marketing agency.
Yeah. And the audience can feel how you're sort of skimming, right, the very top of all of these topics. But there's so much detail and so much hand holding required to actually take you guys all the way through from hearing this and being and understanding innately in your brain that you need this to being walked through and handheld on how to take the first step so that you're not just simply listening and then going back to doing what you were doing the day before.
Listen, any good leader, any good speaker tells you what they're going to say, then tells you, then at the end tells you what they already told you. And I think to kind of recap today's episode, right? The things that we covered were lead generation. How do you do it? Cold versus warm, and defining a goal, right? The second part of our conversation today, we dug a little bit into SEO, how to get found online, right? Which is what I talked about, right? With the blog articles and stuff like that. the call to actions, right? How to get people into your funnel, and designing content, right, that converts. Why a July 4th t-shirt is important to wear to your next cookout. And so I think while we're just like Dean said, we're kind of skimming the waters of marketing. The truth is, if you go back and you watch this video again, what you'll notice is essentially what Dean and I have done is we've given you a blueprint into understanding lead generation, right? Why it's important. How do you define it? How do you put a budget around it? And then what to do if you don't necessarily have a budget. So we talked about the Google and the Facebook, right? How to market in order to drive in leads. But in truth, right? For those of you who are still sort of pre-revenue startups, SEO, right, is the most important tool that you can leverage for both discovery and getting folks into your funnel for free. So I don't necessarily have anything that, I want to talk about other than that on today's episode, other than to remind you, if you are a business and you are looking to grow and thrive, and you want to do so in the presence of other entrepreneurs that are like-minded, consider going to www.jointhefraternity.com. It is a growing community of business owners, even intrapreneurs that want to get outside of a business and work for themselves, that want to grow and thrive, as I mentioned, but are looking for the strategies and the vendors, the advice, the know-how, the experiences. What are the obstacles that I'm trying to jump over? What are the obstacles that I need to look out for? And what is the best way to sort of grow and scale? And if that sounds like you, be it an intrapreneur or entrepreneur, I encourage you to join our growing organization, which is called the Fraternity.
The entrepreneurial journey is the loneliest journey. And if you don't put yourself in a room or in a community online with like-minded people, the chances of you failing are much, much higher than if you simply join the fraternity.
Yeah, don't live in a vacuum, in other words. It's one of the biggest errors that any business owner makes.
But I have a family business.
Yeah.
That's even lonelier.
Yeah. Get outside your comfort zone. Talk to other people. Learn from them the mistakes they made and the strategies that they use to grow and scale their business. And you can do so for $97 a month by joining the fraternity. It's less than the cost for taking your family out for dinner. Think of all the value that you're going to get from 4 Zoom sessions every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. We'll see you guys online at the next Zoom. Wishing you guys the very best. We're out of here.